Hi everyone. I thought we would continue on the series on my Preston games. So I've done rounds 1 and 2. And now it's on to round 3. Merry Boxing Day, by the way, viewers. I'm on 2 points out of 2, and I'm pacing another person on 2 out of 2. Quinn, grade 135 ECF. Just a few points lower than me, and he has white. And he also is a big hacker. Anyway, on to the game. A lot of this game is actually open in theory. Where he plays e4, I play e6, the French, and after d4, d5, knight c3, bishop b4, we're into the Winawer, and after e5, c5, a3, bishop takes c3, check, b takes c3, and we see white sacrificing his pawn structure to get the bishop pair, and we also get the black's best bishop, which is the dark square one. You see the light square one's a bit hemmed in. And there's a lot of queen g4 tricks in this line, hitting g7, which is like unguarded because his bishop's gone. I play queen c7, and now he plays queen g4, attacking g7. And I'm thinking, finally, someone's going to allow me to play my pet line, aka the poison pawn Winawer. I did a video outlining it, and also Sean Godless done a very good series on it, which is where I got the ideas from. But I did a little video explaining it, and a lot of this game is actually theory from that video. It's like the main line, so I'll enclose that video as a video response if you want to check the it out and get the basic positional ideas of the poison pawn line. Because I've been doing these like ridiculously long videos recently, so I thought I'd save a bit of time on this one by linking to that video for the ideas. Now, one of my ideas of playing queen c7 on move 6 is actually to play the move f5, which protects g7 with tempo, because the queen's not exposed to defending it. It's the queen, and the best continuation is probably queen h5 check, g6, and now because white's provoked the weakness for these dark squares, he actually goes back to d1. It's the best square. And after cd, black can actually win a pawn with cd, cd, and then queen c3 check, forcing bishop d2, and now queen takes d4. But after knight f3, protecting e5 and attacking the queen, white can get a dangerous initiative in return for a pawn, but this is all theory. So knight e7 I play, going for the poison pawn, and white can actually decline it with bishop d2. And now one at lines goes castles, bishop d3, c4, bishop e2, knight bc6, with about equal chances. But now he goes for the challenge, queen takes g7, and now we are in my pet line. I play rook g8, and after queen takes h7, c takes d4, destroying white's centre. White now encounters the first tactical minefield, because by the way, I've had the poison pawn winner in one more game, which is at the very rapid play, and my opponent actually played c takes d4, losing to queen c3 check, picking off the rook. So it's not a double pawn sack, by the way, because the d4 pawn's immune. So he has to play king d1's a move, which I think I mentioned in my video, that I'm going to enclose as a video response. And he plays knight e2, the main line, and after knight bc6, because you need rapid development because we're a pawn behind, f4, protecting e5 and getting the space advantage. Now we continue the theme of rapid development with bishop d7, preparing queenside castling. And now white plays, you see white's development is really awkward because the knight's blocking his bishop, and the other bishop is like really bad and got like squares to go to. So black does have some good compensation for the pawn, and I love this line. Now he screws his queen back into defense with queen d3, and now he's threatening to take on d4, so I have to go d takes c3, after knight takes c3, knight b5 to d6 check his threat, so I go a6, protecting b5. This is woven theory, this. And the main move, which I cover in the video, which I hope you'll watch, the video response is rook b1. And black should probably play knight a5, because in this line f5 and c4 are like the outposts for knights, and there's potential for d4 followed by knight e3, as long as knight e4 to f6 check isn't dangerous. This sets a trap, because if black's careless and plays castles long, we have the move queen takes a6, winning the second pawn. Because if it's taken, then black drops another pawn, because after bishop takes a6, the only move is to throw the queen away for nothing, and then white's 3 pawns up in the endgame. I'm winning. So that's a trap you have to know if you've got the black pieces. But as we see, one of white's main assets in this line is not just his bishop pair, an extra pawn, it's the fact that he's got a time bomb, i.e. the H pawn, because that pawn is hard to stop. Once it gets going, it can win serious material. So he actually gets it going straight away with H4. But every pawn move does create a weakness, so I go knight F5, going into my tempo with my outpost with tempo and threatening rook G3. And you see I've highlighted the arrows, the plans I discussed in previous line, with knight A5 to C4 coming, and then maybe D4 followed by knight E3, as long as knight E4 to F6 or D6 isn't too dangerous. And I think his best move was knight E2, protecting G3, knight A5, knight A4, a very important line in every Winawer variation, because the thing is the dark square bishop doesn't have a counterpart. So if you can activate, white can activate his dark square bishop, it's usually very strong, and one of the ways to do that is A4 followed by bishop A3. After castle's long, H5, knight C4. We've got black's leading development versus white's extra pawn, past H pawn and bishop pair, which paves the way for a very interesting struggle and a very unbalanced game, the sort which I like. He plays another move, rook H3, which stops the knight coming in another way. Now I play knight A5, going for knight C4, exclamation mark. He plays rook B1, because another asset for white is a semi-open B file, which aims towards black's king, which usually castles long. And now I played knight C4, blocking white's bishop and queen battery of A6 and bringing the knight to a very good square. And now my opponent goes on with the H pawn with H5, bringing it one step closer to the time bomb. Another alternative was A4, queen A5, an interesting move, sacrificing B7 in return for A4, and after rook takes B7, bishop takes A4. Now the move given actually is king D1. After bishop B5, takes, queen B3, knight D4. And I don't like this much for white. Although he's got two bishops against two knights, there's two raking knights, and white's bishops are both on the start squares, and black's got all the A file pressure as well. So I think this is quite good for black. He plays H5 though, going on with the passed pawn, and I castle long, because there isn't any threats if queen takes A6, now my knight's stopping it. And now here comes an interesting move. My pawn actually goes on with H6, but in this line, although the H pawn is a dangerous time bomb, you can't really just go H5, H6, H7, H8, because otherwise that line would be unplayable for black. This line is good and playable for black for a reason. An alternative was the interesting move queen E2, allowing knight G3. And say after queen F2, knight takes F1. An alternative is the tactical move knight takes A3. The point being is after bishop takes A3, queen takes C3, which could also pick off the bishop. So something like rook B3, and now black can play knight C4. No, sorry, he can't play knight C4 because rook takes G3, so he has to play knight takes C2 check. And after queen takes C2, knight takes F1. And now it looks like white is in trouble, but now comes the very strong bishop A3, which threatens bishop D6. And black's knight is trapped and can be taken any time, so there's no need to take it straight away. And now an incredible move is played, which is bishop A4, skewing white's queen and rook, but the bishops can actually be taken. But it's also pinned to white's queen, so white has two options. One is bishop D6, hitting black's queen after bishop takes B3. Attacking white's queen, you play queen takes B3. The point being is now the queen has to move, and after queen C4 you take, and then black's knight falls because it's trapped. And a very interesting position has arisen. White has got an entrenched bishop which is very strong, a far advanced H pawn and a knight and two pieces against the rook and pawn, but black's counterplay stems from G file pressure and three connected queenside passed pawns, which are going to be very hard to stop. So this is about equal. Very interesting to play along with. Going back a few moves, instead of bishop D6, white actually can play knight takes A4, because although the queen falls, you see we've got this check which will pick up the black queen for a rook, and then black's knight is also going to fall. So after rook BC3 takes, king takes F1. Another interesting position with passed H pawn and two pieces against the rook and pawn versus a passed centre pawn which has got rook behind it and two connected queenside passes. And I actually think this is slightly better for black than the previous one, so my overall conclusion is that 23 bishop d6 is better than 23 knight takes a4. But black needn't play knight takes a3, because white can play queen f2, black can play knight takes f1, king takes f1, and bishop c6. Now we've got same colour bishops now, but black's is more active, and but now white can play queen d4 with advantage and blocking the pawn. And I'd probably rather be white here, so maybe queen e2 is a good move. But of course knight takes a3 leads to these good positions for black, I'd say. But this is typical for this line, unbalanced struggles, with both sides having big chances to win. Now white in the game plays h6, and after rook g6, which is practically forced, which attacks the pawn and tries to lure it forward to its death. And now white plays h7, threatening h8 equals queen, of course. Another alternative was the move knight e4, a tactical move, the point being if the knight's taken, then the c4 knight falls, and then if it isn't taken, then white's knight can come into a good square. But this is a pawn sack to get the knight to a good square, because black's best is to snap the pawn off. After knight f6, bishop b5, I think I'd rather be black. White's got his knight to a very good square, but I don't think he really does much, and this pressure on the diagonal is quite strong, threatening all sorts of like nasty discoveries. So I'd rather be black. So h7 and now rook h8, just surrounding the pawn and threatening rook g7 and rook takes h7. And my opponent, after playing fast, mainly because he knew the theory as well, but not as well as me of course, actually thinks for about half an hour here. And I was thinking, is he thinking of a piece sack on d5, which looks really unsound? But he actually must have calculated, and then he actually played a pawn sack with bishop d2, leaving a3 on pre. And by the way, from this move, bishop d2, the game lasts another 4 moves. So either I get blown away by a piece sack, or I blunder badly, or my opponent blunders badly. One of them two things happens. An interesting shot was the tactical move again, knight e4. And now my best in this position, because I'm not threatening the h pawn, is actually to take the knight, and I'll have to queen takes c4, queen takes c4, bishop takes c4, rook takes g2. This looks really good for black, regaining the pawn with a strong position, but white has a very strong move. If you want to try and spot it, please stop the video now. White from this seemingly inferior position can actually force a draw, with bishop takes a6, b takes a6, and rook c3 check. The point being is that my king can't go to d8 because I lose the rook, so I'll be down in exchange in the pawn, so I have to throw the bishop in the way, so of course to clear d7 square, but it just gets taken. And after king d7, rook takes a6, rook takes h7 is now a forced draw. Now white hasn't really got a way to prevent the mate threats, or like a good way to prevent them, so he has to take a draw by perpetual with rook a7 check, this continuation. And now the reason it's a forced draw is because if black's king actually ventures up the board, then he actually gets mated after this continuation. So he has to go back to c6, and then we just have rook a6 checking. Black's king can't escape the rooks, and white has to keep checking because of all these like dangerous threats by black's pieces. Even if he plays king f1, and then comes like rook takes c2 and all sorts of nasties. So he has to take this draw by perpetual. He's going back. So if white manages to calculate all this and realises he doesn't want to draw, wants to play for a win, the move given is queen d1, rook g7, and now queen back to d3. I think the idea is to lure the rook back to g7 because the pawn's immune, because if it's taken, then rook takes and g4 wins, because what's I done the arrow wrong? Meant to go from d3 by the way. What a fail. But of course white's winning the piece because knight can't move because rook will hang. So after queen d3, black should play queen c5 with like dynamic equality, with good compensation for the pawn, and it'll probably take white's pawn soon anyway. But my opponent plays bishop d2, an unsound pawn sack, which I actually don't accept because I had better ideas. I used to play rook g7, trying to win the h7 pawn because I didn't like that pawn being on board. Knight takes a3 is safe. After rook b3, knight c4. Now the best move given is knight e4. But after this position that arises, It's similar except white's not up a pawn. Knight takes d2, by the way, isn't actually a good idea, because why give up that monstrous knight for a pathetic bishop just to get the bishop pair back? Just get rid of white's bishop pair. You might as well have the bishop pair and have that awful bishop, then get rid of that monstrous knight and after queen takes d2, rook g7, bishop d3, and white has an advantage. So rook g7, and now my opponent plays a move which I kind of actually been expected, even though I didn't think it worked. A safe alternative for white maybe is knight e2. After bishop b5, this move where the dead bishop comes to life, threatening discoveries. Now a4. Now there's a series of pawn stacks given with bishop takes a4. Now g4, rook takes g4, knight d4, knight takes d2, queen takes and knight g3. And all of a sudden white's down the pawn to get some inroads towards black's king, but black's also got initiative as well, so I can't see this being good for white. But my opponent thought, well, I'm dropping the h7 pawn and I'm moving a pawn down with the worst position because I've got backward development and my king's stuck in the centre because I've moved both my rooks. So you know what, I'll lash out with knight takes d5 double question mark. Now the game lasts another 3 moves. So you'd think that I'm going to crush under white's initiative, or he's going to blunder horrifically. Well, the sacrifice is completely safe to accept. He takes d5, and after queen takes d5, his point being is that he's now got 3 pawns for the piece. And he's also attacking my knight twice, and it seems that if my knight moves, then all white's pieces are going to flood into the game, and my queen side's going to be completely hacked to shreds. In fact, if I move the knight, then bishop takes a6 would probably win. So, but I have 2 moves, and one was actually better than the other, and I played actually the worst one. Typical of me. The best move was knight takes d2, queen takes d2. If king takes d2, then knight e7 wins an exchange. So queen takes d2, and now knight g3, rook h2, takes, and then take h7 pawn. And white is not only has white only got 2 pawns for piece all of a sudden, but his king's completely wide open. There's bishop b5 check, queen c4 check. White has to take an h7, by the way, engines give just to stay like in the game, just about. But all the others are like immediately lost. And this is almost resignable. All black's pieces are active and flooding the game, and he's up material. I play the bishop e6, which is also good enough for a big advantage, just threatening the queens and defending the knight. And after queen e4, the best move was rook h takes h7, just reducing white to only 2 pawns for piece and keeping all discovery threats alive. Now you see that I've got discoveries, but because he's put his queen in e4, there actually isn't a way to win material, I think. Or in fact, I might have to turn the engine on actually, something I didn't check when I was preparing the video. Turn Houdini on. Now knight g3, which looks absolutely crushing. I was wondering why that's only giving a small advantage, but I realised he's got 2 pieces on my c4 knight. Because after rook takes, connection's been a bit slow. You can take my c4 knight. You see, and white's got a bishop and 3 pawns for rook. It's still giving us a lot better for white for some reason. In fact, no, I can take his bishop. Although I've got a rook for 3 pawns, it's actually not giving us that big advantage for black. But this was a win as well. Should mention that. But I played knight takes d2. The point being is that I'm getting rid of the knight from a vulnerable spot, and I'm also forcing him to give up castling rights. Or am I? Well, if king takes d2, then knight g3 just wins an exchange. He has to take. Bishop d3 check. Bishop d5. Queen takes a3 check. Bishop was going to win g2. This is just game over. We're back a rook up for about 2 pawns with white's king at our mercy. However, he doesn't give up castling rights. He actually completely misses his rooks on pre and just plays queen b4. And I realise he hasn't got a mating threat, so I just take his rook and he resigns. He just thought his rook was on pre, because I've got 2 knights and a rook for 3 pawns. I've used up that much material, his king's getting hacked as well. There's no kill, so he resigned. Next I'm going to take an h7, I'm going to bring the queen in and everything. It's going to be a massive free-for-all, so resigns, best option. And what a win there, 24 move miniature with black over 135. Don't usually get many wins like that, and with my pet line, played in long play for the first time. What a win. And this put me on 3 out of 3. So after that awful form earlier, and now I'm not getting beaten up in majors and managed to get in under 145 section. I'm actually on 3 out of 3 and have a real chance of winning tournament. And my next video will see me playing the other guy on 3 out of 3, Steve Crockett, which should make for an interesting game because he'd been hacking everyone up with Dutch. So that'll be the next one in the series if I can find the score sheet. But for now, please visit my Epic Chess Cafe on ChessCube. Thank you for the subscriber boost recently, over 600 now. And please subscribe to increase it even more, and because I'm doing a good thing here. And please leave any comments and thoughts. Thanks very much.